Okay, I'm going to talk about this. There was a report in 2023 that there was an autistic Israeli girl who put together a calendar of twice daily animal sacrifices, as reported in Israel 365 News. And they reported a young autistic woman in Israel has put forth what she hopes will be used as a calendar by Jewish priests for making daily animal sacrifices once they have been resumed. Does the reconstituted Sanhedrin or the Temple Institute believe that such sacrifices can be resumed without a massive Jewish temple? What happened in the days of Ezra? Will such sacrifices be resumed? Does the Bible teach that such sacrifices will be stopped? If so, when will the sacrifices start and end? Any connection of the sacrifices to the Great Tribulation or the return of Jesus? Could a red heifer be sacrificed? They said in the spring of 2024. Well, this was the year that it would have been 3 years old. What about 1290 days of Daniel 12? Does the Sanhedrin have a dedicated altar that they can now use for sacrifices? Steve Dupuy and Dr. Thiel address these matters. A written article of related interest is available titled Autistic Israeli Girl Puts Together a Calendar of Twice Daily Animal Sacrifices. But in August 15th of 2023, this girl created a daily schedule calendar. While many people are praying for the arrival of the third temple, one special young girl took on a daunting project that is a huge practical step in jump-starting the temple service. Miriam, a young autistic girl, took a step towards realizing her dream of seeing the temple restored by creating a calendar detailing the daily schedule of the temple service. My name is Miriam, the article read. I am an autistic girl and not independent in many ways, but I understand everything and communicate by typing. I thought for a long time about what I could do that would be significant, something that would help everyone think and prepare for the temple. I decided to make a temple calendar. I wrote down on a calendar the hours of the Tamid daily sacrifice for every day and the Tamid evening sacrifice. I also wrote when there is an additional Musaf sacrifice. For Miriam, the calendar is a powerful tool for creative visualization. I want you to look at the calendar every day and remember what we are missing right now. Every day, she wrote. I have written everything in the present tense so that we can feel what it is like. And let's pray together that God will bring us redemption soon and that the priests will offer these sacrifices. The calendar is freely available for download in a PDF file ready for printing at home. Printing instructions are on the last page of the file. I would be very happy for you to print the calendar and hang it on your wall, Miriam wrote. I would be very happy if you could help me distribute the calendar. And Israel 365 News has this. And has the download picture of Miriam's animal sacrifice calendar. She goes on to say, I machine translated one of the dates from the calendar above, and here's the translation via Google Translate. 6:18, sunrise, always a sacrifice. Additional victim, 15:17. That's the time. Always a sacrifice at 18:59, sunset. The requirement for 2 sacrifices per day comes from the book of Numbers. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire, which you shall offer to the Lord, 2 male lambs in their first year, without blemish, day by day, as a regular burnt offering. The one lamb you shall offer in the morning, the other lamb you shall offer in the evening. Numbers 28, 3-4. Christians, however, do not need to have animal sacrifices, as we accept Jesus' death eliminated that need, as the following in the New Testament point out. Therefore, purge out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, since you truly are unleavened. For indeed, Messiah, our Passover, was sacrificed for us. 1 Corinthians 5:7. But Messiah came as high priest of the good things to come, with the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands. That is, not of this creation. Not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood he entered the most holy place once for all, having obtained eternal redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a red heifer, sprinkling the unclean, sanctifies for the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Messiah, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living God? And for this reason he is the mediator of the new covenant, by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, that those who are called may receive the promise of the eternal inheritance. Hebrews 9:11 through 15. Since Christians do not need to be sacrificing animals, why is the idea of animal sacrifices of prophetic interest? Two reasons. First, since the Jews do not accept Jesus' sacrifice, they believe that they still need to have daily sacrifices. Well, it's because they think that the ashes of the red heifer will purify all the Jews worldwide if it's sprinkled on them. And the second is that Bible prophecy shows that there will be animal sacrifices again, and that the stopping of them will have prophetic ramifications. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even to the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Daniel 9:27. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. Daniel 11:31. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Daniel 12:11. Daniel 9 and 11 involve actions by one who will be the prophesied European king of the north, beast power, and he will be involved in stopping those sacrifices. For those sacrifices to be stopped, they must be started. Miriam's calendar is another small step towards that. When may they start? They will be started prior to the start of the Great Tribulation, as they are stopped just prior to the Great Tribulation, which in the sequence in Daniel 11 starts in verse 39. See also, when will the Great Tribulation begin, which is, of course, after the sacrifices are stopped in Daniel 11:31. And they're talking about the worst part of the tribulation, the Great Tribulation, which is the last 3.5 years. We are getting closer to the time of starting the animal sacrifices, and for such sacrifices to stop, they must first start. The Temple Institute has various implements, a high priest, as well as red heifer candidates to be able to start. It may possibly sacrifice a red heifer in 2024 or 2025, which didn't happen in 24. And yet some will say, isn't a massive temple needed first before sacrifices can be implemented? The answer is no. When I visited the Temple Institute in October of 2013, I specifically asked a man who was part of it if they needed a temple in order to sacrifice, and he said no. All they needed was permission from the government as well as an altar. As far as sacrifices go and what was needed, notice something that the Bible shows. From the first day of the 7th month, began they to offer burnt offerings unto the Lord. But the foundation of the temple of the Lord was not yet laid, in Ezra 3:6. So there was no temple, yet sacrifices were done. Now the red heifer ceremony actually begins the sacrificial system. Now one may argue that since it takes the participation of Jewish religious leaders in order for Jewish animal sacrifices to be resumed in the 21st century, that the above scripture is a moot point. And it might be if there were no Jewish religious leaders that thought that they could not sacrifice without a temple. In addition to getting confirmation from the Temple Institute that a massive Jewish temple is not needed, I contacted the reconstituted Sanhedrin a decade ago, and I asked them to verify if they believed that animal sacrifices could be started before a temple is rebuilt. And the response that I received from Rabbi Hollander was this: The Nicene Sanhedrin sees itself as the continuation of rabbinic jurisprudence and must take into account all halakhic works written to date and proceed from there. That was the email from the Sanhedrin webmaster Abraham to Tom Thiel of September 17th, 2008. And therefore, it is a long-standing position of some Jewish scholars that Jewish sacrifices can be started on an altar, and as long as it is in the area of the old temple, that a physical temple is not first required. This is consistent with Ezra's previously quoted practice. And while many do wish to build another temple and have again recently taken steps, see closer to another Jewish temple in Jerusalem being built, it should be pointed out that biblical prophecies do not require that a Jewish temple be built in Jerusalem before Jesus returns. For details, see why is a Jewish temple in Jerusalem not required. There is no biblical requirement for a temple to be built for sacrifices to resume in Ezra 3:6. Jewish leaders have long recognized the second point. See the Nicene Sanhedrin structure and high priest. The plan is to start animal sacrifices, and this would fulfill prophecy, which is part of why there have been animal sacrifices in the past 15 years or so. The Bible also tells us of daily sacrifices being stopped in Daniel 9:27 and 11:31 and 12:11. And since they have not started, their start is a prophetic event to look out for. Basically, what is needed is an altar acceptable to the Jews. As far as an altar goes, the Sanhedrin officially dedicated one on December 10th of 2018. And they put together a video about it in the Bible News Prophecy YouTube channel. And of course, we all saw that, and the Sanhedrin made a burnt offering to dedicate altar. The reconstituted Sanhedrin performed a ceremony on December 10th of 2018 to dedicate a new altar for the use of daily sacrifices. High priest Rabbi Baruch Kahana officiated. How does this align with Bible prophecy? Daniel wrote 3 times that the daily sacrifices must stop, which of course again means that they must first resume. The Great Tribulation will begin shortly after these sacrifices stop. And so Dr. Thiel, who has also been to Israel and spoken with the Temple Institute, quotes several scriptures and explains why the actions by the Sanhedrin align with prophecy in the end times. And that being said, it has long been his position that the political situation in Israel will be a factor in animal sacrifices. Because Israel has a parliamentary system of governance and is normally governed by a coalition of parties, he believes that at some point in time, a coalition party that insists on animal sacrifices will become part of the top governance, and the sacrifices will then begin, though they may last only a very short period of time, but long enough for the king of the north to stop them, per Daniel 11:31. And this is his position. But yes, political consideration will be a factor in renewed regular animal sacrifices. The current Israeli coalition government has people who want the sacrifices. If in the future more politicians in power hold that view, they will support the allowance of the sacrifices. And of course, some of the Sanhedrin members are already members of the Knesset, and if more of them get in, to become part of the World Supreme Court there with the Sanhedrin, then that would come to pass, I'm sure, by their hand. Many in Israel also realize that some have believed that Donald Trump's decision to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and take other Israel-supporting steps means that regular animal sacrifices are closer to getting political acceptance. And biblically, we know that the regular animal sacrifices will resume. Miriam's calendar is another small step in that direction. And there was an update on August 22nd, 2023. But that's very interesting that she made a calendar showing when each of the sacrifices is to be performed. And this news went out, and she's hoping that they will use her calendar, which, can be followed by the priests. So this is very interesting, and it's getting more and more serious and closer to the start of the time of Jacob's trouble. So I just thought this was really interesting that this calendar had already been made and it's already prepared. So keep this in mind. This is part of prophetic events stampeding forward. And I'll see you in the next video. Please don't forget to give a like, subscribe, or resubscribe. And please support my work on this channel. It's extremely crucial. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Good night.